This is what the padding looked like when the fitting was over.
Notice that I had to shorten it at the shoulder seam because it was sagging too low. That wasn't enough, so I decided I need to add a piece of elastic, which will be joined into the base. Mostly the shape of the padding was pretty good, but the placement on the butt was low, so that's been hiked up here. And there was a little bit of a divot happening here, which was pushing the thighs low. Other than that, it was pretty good. I've marked the length and location of the elastic. I won't put that back on until almost the end when I'm making the adjustments on the base. So now I've pulled the cover and the batting off. You can see that my front has remained at its original spot, but in the back, on this side, the butt and thigh padding has come right up to the edge of the belly. This is what it looked like originally. See how much higher it is on the right side? That's the corrected location. Now I'm going to start stitching the padding to itself. I start at the outside layer and work in. So while it's on the dress form, I pin the top layer to the next layer down and marked the top of where that's all sitting. Stitching this foam by machine has a tendency to get everything a little caught up, so I have the widest width zig and a pretty long length. When I'm done sewing the two layers together, I flip it over and trim away about 1/2 inch wide ovals with about a 1-inch gap in between. I just shoved some paper in here so you could see the shape of the ovals. So here it is back on the dress form. You can barely see my line of stitching here. I've given myself a safety pin for the top of the padding because it can be a little bit difficult at the beginning at least to know which is top and which is bottom. And then I've pinned the next layer on and given myself another pin for its location. So here's the next layer, stitched, flipped over, and trimmed. I'll keep changing the directions of the cutouts as I go through the padding. So one layer going horizontally, the next layer vertically, back and forth all the way through. The longest a hole should be is about 5 or 6 inches. So when you get to a place where they would need to be longer than that, do them in a series. Stop every now and then and make sure that you're making something that is symmetrical. If you get to a place where the layers are stacked right on top of each other with less than 1/4 inch apart, don't stitch that by machine. Just give yourself a horizontal pin. Start where it is 1/4 inch away from the edge. At the end, we'll go back and swing tack through so that these layers don't fold in on themselves. Any areas that are stacked too closely that I couldn't stitch by machine, I leave at least a couple inches there so that there's place for the hand tacking to go through. This is layer 7. You can see that the padding is starting to curve in a shape that will go easily around the body. So here are all the belly and chest layers stitched to the base layer of foam. Ordinarily, I would stitch this all to a layer of stretch and then cover the padding and stitch all of that to the same base layer of stretch. But because this is for a movie and I'm trying to make everything super thin, I am not doing it that way. Instead, I've softly, lightly stitched a piece of grosgrain ribbon to the areas that will need extra support because I'm going to swing tack them all together. So down at the bottom of the belly and on the underside of the chest pieces. I'm using a Japanese nylon thread, double layered. So here is the right chest that's tacked. I've just gone in and out, through and through, very softly, very lightly. I don't want it to condense anything. I just want it to prevent the foam from turning back in on itself like it could like that.